We're live!
Alive!
Hey, we got frames.
Absolutely no issues whatsoever today. Everything went perfectly smooth. That's the story I'm sticking to. Happy weekend, Rage. Happy weekend, Pseudo. Hey, Board. Meatball time. Nice of you to join us. I'm getting my words back from one of you two.
Are you?
Yeah.
Because I could hear myself back from you earlier.
Might be
So I
from
think there's
Pseudo
something.
then.
It's probably from
something's-
me. I'll test something. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I heard it there. I got an idea. Watch this. Test. Can still hear it. Test. Can't hear it. Pseudo.
Hey.
Windows audio, man. Windows audio.
Yep. I used the mute guest option in OBS.Ninja. It worked. So, combat without chat. We can see you guys. You can't see yourselves on the stream. I apologize. I fluxed and fuxed with not slobs, Streamlabs as much as possible. They don't want to send me my chat. I can get it in a browser. If you guys want to see it in a browser, I can give that to you. It's not going to look great, but we can't inject it into the stream right now because Twitch hack.
It's broken.
Twitch hack. Twitch hack changed all their keys and all this security stuff because they got hacked and they had to, but now nothing works. That's the nature of it.
It's a pain in the butt. It did have to happen. All the security stuff needed to change, but it is a pain in the butt.
Yep. All of these things that Rach has said are entirely true. So, combat. That's what I have up right now. Recap. Last time we decided a skill structure, tight group, narrow group kind of focus. We haven't decided exactly how it's going to work, but we decided we do want to go that way. Probably. Everything's a probably right now. Remember that. Oh my. They're coming for you, Pseudo.
Yeah.
What have you done now? There you go. All right. So. That's got to be his mic just picking up. Why would his mic pick up so much? No, I'm coming through his headphones. And there's no way the headphones could be picking up the mic to be putting back my voice. That's so weird.
Yeah, there's some software loop back going on somewhere.
Yeah, strange one. Strange one. Anyway, we also touched on magic just a little bit, on the general structure of where I want to go with it, because I'm pretty sure the other two designers have never touched that magic system before.
You are correct.
It takes a lot to work that magic system into the game, and it's the coolest fucking magic system I've ever seen. You know what? Let's talk magic before we talk combat and character creation.
Sure.
Because I think if we want to go with this magic system, it's going to create some really diverse, different characters. So we will probably end up going classes mixed with the system of... We'll have to talk about how we want to implement it, how widespread we want it to be, if we want there to be other angles of it. These are all things we kind of got to work out. I think it's a good way to go. And like I said, it's such a different system that it will guide a lot of other design principles just through how crazy it is. Oh my god, it's 420? Well,
Nice.
I think it's creative time then, isn't it? So, World of Darkness combat system.
Specifically magic.
Yes, World of Darkness magic system. I want to take my morning dab. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to find out how much Rage remembers about the system as he attempts to recount what he learned to Pseudo.
Despite the fact that I've never played the game. So my understanding of the World of Darkness magic system is that there are 8 major schools of magic, and each of these schools or realms, if you will, have a different focus. And you can have things that are like the focus on life, which would allow you to be able to, maybe. Oh, I'm doubled apparently. So it wasn't. It was not just when you were testing it.
I only hear single. Say again.
Check test.
Oh, weird. Okay, I see. Oh, I know what's fucking happening. I think I know what's happening. No, I don't.
What's happening?
Why are you doing this to me?
I imported reverb with Python.
Yeah, I should be fine. And welcome in Caria. We're just gonna do this. There we go. Rage will be fine for now.
Check test. Check test.
I muted the other channel that you were coming in on, so.
Yeah. Well, okay then.
Unfortunately, that's the
Where was I?
alert sounds channel. I don't know why you're coming in on the alert sounds channel, but
Because I'm very alarming.
apparently. Wait, maybe I do know? Maybe?
Evil eyebrows?
I'll go check it in a second while you explain. The only thing we're going to be missing is alert sounds if anybody tries to, alert anything.
If somebody were to, do something crazy, gift a sub.
Yeah. However, if somebody were to host, it wouldn't be broken because hosts just don't work anyway. And Spent Death, welcome to the table. Apparently it played.
Apparently, and I gifted 31 subs instead of 1. What?
You have
That's better
gifted
than
30.
zero, I
No.
guess.
You have gifted 31 subs. Is what it was saying, and you have gifted 31 subs.
Have I?
Yes.
Shit.
It says
I've
right in
thrown a lot of money at
it
this.
says right in the announcement. They've gifted 31 subs in the channel.
Wow.
What happens today? What's the plan first time here? So we're starting off with talking about magic systems in games, Meatball. Rage is going to explain roughly how World of Darkness magic system works, because we've interrupted him so many times in doing it now. The only thing I want to add is they're called spheres of magic.
Okay, Mr. Pedant.
Yep.
So that would give you control. There are different spheres of magic that give you control over a certain aspect of the world around you. The most interesting of which is entropy, which allows you to sort of bend the world around you. Deus gave some really cool examples of changing a person who was about to shoot him in the face, changing their perception of him walking into the room to that he was suddenly, hundreds of meters away and the guy was trying to shoot him with a pistol. So he was just like, well, I can't hit that.
That was
and
not because what you just said was the fate control, not you're thinking. I can't remember what the spatial perception one was.
Okay. And and there's a bunch of different schools and there's 8 of them and we have 8 stats and we can tie each one to a stat and it'll probably fit really well, but I'm not entirely convinced how we're going to balance it. Kind of not really.
See, the thing is with illusion in D&D, you have a bunch of spells you can cast, and they all relate to the illusion magic. In this, it's more. Let's say, and this is not the way we're going to organize it, but let's say one of the spheres was vision. You would just have control over people's vision, and it wouldn't be spells you can cast. It would just be, I want to make him see this.
Which is a very interesting and open-ended way of doing things. Really lends itself to creativity, which I like about it. I'm just not sure about how. I'm not sure about how we're going to actually do it. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I have no idea how we're going to do it, but I know it's what I want to do.
And Odeus can explain it so that it actually makes sense, because I've never actually played with the system.
Actually, you were pretty spot on. You were close enough for what we need.
I did a remembering.
Yay.
Okay. Let's figure out. So I'm gonna let's go ahead and import over the stats. It looks like they got rolled back again.
There should be a history in Google Docs.
Did we put it in a different doc, maybe? Because I didn't have the doc open last time. No, it's not there.
That's the first one that we just started writing stuff down. Is all the skills. Oh, here we go. Strength, precision, fortitude, appeal, knowledge, wisdom, resolve. Hey, Doomed. Thank you very, very much. Welcome.
Welcome.
Don't mind the Twitch tokens being broken everywhere, but welcome to the creativities. Let me zoom this right in so we can just copy this.
Creativity, aka steal everybody else's systems.
Yep. That's really what creativity is. Just taking influence from lots of different places, and the creativity comes in how you make those gears all fit together and work as a cohesive machine. You know what? The guy who invented the clock didn't invent the gear, but he still made something unique out of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, all technology and art is derivative. It all builds on the shoulders of what has come before. We're doing well. How are you, Doomed?
Yeah, I'm I'm better. I'm better. I missed yesterday's stream. I wasn't feeling too hot, but feeling better today. Yesterday, no, day before's. Day before's. Yesterday I did a late stream. Felt a little better.
Started late, went real late.
Yeah.
Playing Back for Blood, and then Insurgency.
Turns out Back for Blood real fun, and Insurgency's new mode real fun. So lots of time disappeared.
Then there's the Back for Blood Arena little mini game.
That was so much fun.
That was probably the most fun I had in the whole night, just because I got to shoot Rage. Every time I killed Rage, I felt so good. I was like, I did it good! Okay.
I wish there was 2 entrances to that arena. That would make it so much better.
Honestly, I like it as one. When one person gets the good gun and you're like, I gotta get through, or I gotta get some shots off with my gun because they can't heal.
It's a good sign for their gunplay mechanics, at least. That
It
they're
is.
fun enough to just actually fight people with. Because there's a lot of games that are, like even the Left 4 Dead games, the guns don't feel the best. There's a lot of games out there that the guns don't feel like they can be used in that context, and it's nice. I really like what they've done.
Yeah, and I like that they're built on Unreal rather than Source. I've not been a big fan of Source shooters in the past.
It handles and plays amazingly, and I think based on it and Insurgency, I think Unreal is the new de facto standard in my mind for shooters until somebody proves me otherwise.
I mean, it kind of has been for a long time.
Well, then why use anything
Quake
else?
Because the Quake engine used to be amazing.
Oh, I know.
It's been basically forked into what Call of Duty is now, and they've taken all the feel out of it.
Oh, it's Call of Duty Quake engine?
Yeah, it originally was Quake engine. That
Cool.
was adapted by who was it?
We weren't hyped for it
the
at
one
all.
that isn't Treyarch, Infinity Ward. Infinity Ward adapted the Quake engine for the original Call of Duty and just kept building on it, and then they hit Call of Duty 4, which in my opinion is still the pinnacle of PvP shooters. And the team that made COD 4 was then let go because they did too good of a job. I don't know. And basically they ruined it after that.
That's unfortunate. So time to get on track. We get off track all the time on this show. You'll get used to it, but it's on track time for a little bit. And just for the record, we were not hyped for Back 4 Blood. We were kind of like, it's on Game Pass. I guess we'll check it out. And now we love it.
It's actually really good.
Now we love it.
We gotta go beat Act 2.
Magic argument time. Does everyone use magic?
No. And just to make the pun about Unreal. Oh yeah, we get you.
I just have to be very clear for the record. I'm also pedantic as fuck.
Both of these things are true.
Pseudo? Does everyone in the game use magic?
I'm thinking about that. I guess it depends on how robust the magic is and how much utility is in there. If there's utility magic, then I'd probably say yes. But if it's mostly just kind of offensive and defensive within like one sort of kind of class-ish structure, then probably not. I also kind of think it matters depending on like settings and stuff like that, because typically, you know, depending on what the magic is and how it's explained, it's usually something that, you know, specialized people spend years, you know, researching and training in to gain the knowledge to how to use it. And it's not really something that your kind of common person on the street can kind of just do, depending on, you know, the overall setting and what this thing is.
Yeah, yep. And that's sort of the way that I'm thinking about it as well, is that there are probably people who are not magic attuned, and we want to be able to cater to that playstyle as well, much like the character that I started making in Shadowrun, who was genetically built to be anti-magic. Like, just everything about her was conditioned and grown and like basically made in a lab to be undetectable and uninfluenceable by magic. And I want to be able to do that sort of thing in our system as well. So I think leaving the flexibility for players to choose whether they want to use magic or not.
I think the player flexibility absolutely wins the argument. Nobody can argue against player flexibility. That's
to the comment that Doomtoons brought up. That's surprising because there was lawsuits regarding that. The N64 Mario Party in that game and a few other ones, because it I think caused damage to the controller, but also like was making people's palms bleed. So I think there was actual lawsuits on that. So I'd be really surprised if they decide to put that back in.
I never got my palm bleeding from doing it. I was a master of the minigame though, and I've never lost on an N64 controller.
I bet you destroyed quite a few of those joysticks. They're not super robust.
Not as many and as bad as you might think. I just had a really good circle with not too much pressure on the edge, really fast. That's the way. Like, if you're putting too much pressure on it, you're using too much movement and energy on rubbing. So you can actually go much faster if you don't do that. I just got really good at doing that. Yeah, it would get a little wobbly after a while, but it would still kind of work. So is magic a class?
I am sort of staunchly against having classes with this system.
Yeah, if you want to put magic on every stat, then I think having it as a toggle is probably better.
Yeah, you either spend the points to have access to magic or not.
Can magic be learned after creation, or is it innate?
We have a classless system, do we, or do we have designated classes?
We have nothing yet.
Okay.
So far, we do not have classes. I would like to keep it classless with the amount of flexibility that we're giving to players with the way the skill system is set up. So, I mean, I'm open to the idea of classes, but my goal is currently classless.
Yeah, I like classless approaches as well, and that's the only thing that kind of influences that last question, because if there's no classes, then everyone should be able to, you know, learn magic, or kind of how that's done, or how attunement happens. If it's, something we want to gate behind skills, or something we want to gate behind, some sort of, attunement that the person has to go through, some sort of academy or something like that. Not necessarily like say no, but make it something that maybe not everyone's just going to be able to go and have a little magic in them just for the fun. It's something they still have to commit a bit to, but maybe not as much as as just a stat point.
Yeah, but okay. Can it be learned, or is it innate?
I would say learnable. Like there should be some way to gain magic within the system.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely a way to improve it if you don't start with it. But that toggle that allows you to learn magic, that point expenditure, does that have to be done at character creation, or can you turn that on with a big investment later?
I would say I like the idea of it being just a stat spend, or not a stat spend, a point spend. Like if you don't start with magic, but are magic attuned, then there's no reason you couldn't learn magic. Again, I'm gonna bring up the idea that I had for the magic resistant character. I would like to have the ability to like completely cut someone off from magic, but I would
Have it
also
be expensive.
yes, like it would
Yeah.
be spending a ton of points under resolve sort of thing.
Yeah, I also think there will probably be some sort of a resistance / save type system, and you'd probably have to be able to spend points directly on that.
How so?
Well, I guess we can base it directly off resolve, but having separate stats that you can spend points in order to increase your resistance against things.
Well, remember, resolve was intended to be the mental version of fortitude.
Yeah.
So, as one of the skills under resolve, we could have one of the big categories being like anti-magic sort of thing. And within that, you can be cut off from magic entirely once you get enough of the skill within there that you're like you essentially can't be touched with magic. You can be hit with area effects, you can be hit with magical explosions, or the world can be warped around you in order to cause damage to you, but you specifically cannot be touched by magic. Call it like magic immunity, and because it's so powerful, it also means that you can't use any magic.
I don't know about the magic immunity part, though. Because you're just like, hey, all these characters that spend all their points in one area to become specialized, I'm now immune to.
Well, they can't affect your person directly. But like if you have some sort of spatial magic, you can just warp the floor underneath them, and then they fall into a pit and break both their legs. Like...
So we can still affect them, just not
you can still
target
affect them, just not directly. You couldn't say, do a super evil Magneto and pull all the iron out of their blood, sort of thing.
Okay.
You couldn't turn their bones into spiky shards.
And to address Encaria's previous talkings about how he likes to play characters without magic, how that would work in Encaria is because you don't spend points on the magic skills that are expensive and turning on magic. Even if you don't, you don't even turn on magic at the beginning. you get more strength from the get-go, you get more physical stats from the get-go, you get more skills from the get-go, because you haven't spent the points on that. So you are a better physical person, and you will probably beat the pulp out of them at the beginning of the game.
Magic is going to be expensive and not very useful for the first bit.
As magic should be. Yeah, it's a different sort of learning curve. Can be learned. So let's...
Although it would be fun to have the equivalent of a warlock, where you're essentially like all early game burst damage.
Okay, so let's try to rough out an influence for each stat. Okay, good.
So, with the 8 spheres that we're targeting, do we want to have 2 for each mental stat?
Yeah, do you want to do 1 for each stat or 2 for each mental stat?
That's the question that I'm asking.
Let's try to rough out 1 for each stat, because there are a lot of interesting things we could look at with physical magics.
So, say you wanted to associate a magic with strength, that would be like buffs?
That's what I'm thinking.
Because I was thinking like buffs, debuffs be under influence, because it's directly influencing people or things around you.
Well, influence, you could even take a much more direct mental/verbal approach and do like Jedi mind tricks and stuff like that.
True.
Whereas strength, you could look at more physical buffs. Jumping higher, running faster, increasing natural...
Yeah, it also doesn't make a ton of sense to like go lift weights and become better at magic, though.
It does if you're understanding your body better, and that's where the origin of it all comes from.
Maybe if we flesh out the different types of magic, we might be able to find some areas that match up. Because I could see things like...
Just brainstorm some examples.
Like any kind of castables or throwables could be something that's with strength, right? Maybe you can conjure like... like a spiky metal ball in your hand, or like a fireball, and it's your strength that determines like actually how far you can throw that, rather it just being like a flat magic thing. If we want some sort of overlap there, they can have magical influence, but you could also bring some strength into it.
How do we have to give them an area of... If we want to keep it open-ended without creating spells, then we're not going to be thinking of specific things for them to do so much, though. Like one of the examples is Force, is one of the spheres in World of Darkness, where you can just control forces, specifically. Like bullets that are shot at you, you could reverse the kinetic energy. That would be a higher level one, affecting forces. At first it's just sense force, like you could sense radiation if you needed to. How important magic will be in the game/world? That's what we're figuring out now, Meatball. We're really, really early in the creation of this game. We're about 6 hours in right now. That's how long we've done this.
And
Maybe
the first, 3 hours, we're just arguing about how to roll dice.
Which is fundamentally important and worth arguing over.
Yes. But it's time that is not spent on other things.
Yeah. I can send you guys something in the background here.
If you were to conjure a physical object, unsure what that would be tied to, I would want to say probably either resolve or influence.
Well, let's just call it create matter for now. Something you want to be able to do. Let's just list out things we want to be able to do.
So that would have a mental stat associated with it. And then you would use your strength to throw it. like the spiky ball example. I don't think that needs to be specifically tied to the magic itself. I think it would just be like, okay, you conjured the thing. Now make your throwing check to see how far you can throw it.
Yeah. Does it, and some people may not understand CRUD. but we're using it. And if you don't
CRUD
understand,
is an acronym for create, remove, no.
Read, update, delete.
Isn't there something different with R? Or is
remove?
it just little r?
Remove.
But it was read, create, read,
Yeah,
update, delete.
create, read, update, delete. That's what it is.
Anyway, we're using it as just we want to be able to do all the things we need to do with this matter. And life,
So
living matter.
Matter specifically being
Actually, you know what?
being inanimate matter.
If
Inorganic
we
matter.
swap the R and the C around, that's kind of what the 4 levels do. It would be RUCD. Read, update, create, destroy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. But then what would the 5th level be?
Well, we'll figure out something before the 1st level. Destroys the top. Period.
Yeah, because to be able to just snap your fingers and Thanos something.
Yeah.
We would want something to be able to change others' perceptions of a situation. We would want something to be able to directly influence. Do we want to be able to directly influence somebody's thoughts?
Maybe the potential to. You know, the D&D does have those spells too. They were never that broken.
It depends how you use them and how the DM rules it, but
Exactly. But it's all about the player's ability to use it at that point, which is the whole point of this system. I think giving them the tool is a wonderful idea.
yeah. So let's say CRUD thoughts, essentially.
Yes, I like this idea. I mean, it creates framework within the game to have like thought eaters and stuff like that as monsters just in the raw rules of the game. They're just really, really high thought magic.
Thought magic.
I was just thinking the same thing. The exact same thing. I'm like, do I type it? Do I type it? And I'm like, maybe not.
It's perfect because chat's not working for the video, so you can't prove anything.
I wonder how much overlap there is, though, between thoughts and perception, or if we keep those just separate types.
Thought is directly related to perception.
But one is...
I was talking about the other thought.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just not acknowledging it. Perception, I would say, is more to do with changing the senses.
Yes.
So maybe we could rename it to sense magic. Whereas thought is more about, like, they sensed the thing and they're gonna react to it, and you just remove that instinct.
Yeah, like the conscious.
Yeah.
Change perception is illusion, where Crud thought is more like suggest person from D&D.
Right.
Hey man, you should go kill that motherfucker. I'm gonna go kill that motherfucker.
Or, dominate person or whatever.
Maybe even hold person, sleep.
Yeah.
At the basic levels, it's the ability to suggest things that they're inclined to do.
Or
level.
The basic would be read, like get a basic understanding of what that person's thinking about just by reaching out with your mind to their mind.
Yeah, like maybe empathy at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like you're a counselor Troy at level 0 or level 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
no
taking
worries.
off meatballs? No
Thanks-
worries.
Thanks for
Thanks for coming
joining.
by.
Hope we got
The,
the brain juices stirring a little bit for you.
The VOD is always there. You can always come check it out later. Feel free to ask any questions that you've got in the Discord. If you watch the VOD and you're like, hey, this thing that you were discussing doesn't really make a ton of sense.
Hit us in Discord, we'll explain everything. Or if you just were like, hey, did you guys think of this? Definitely hit us with those, because once in a while we go, no! Those are great.
You got one right away. Okay, I like it. Feedback. Feedback is good.
Find interesting that you are starting from the mechanics of the game. That's how we focus on games.
That's kind of our big deal. Why did we take this approach instead of starting with the surrounding stuff? Basically because we want to create a system that anybody can use to put in any world.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
then
we
you...
want-
Go ahead.
You can see it's like a toolbox for making the tools and everything. And then when you have these tools, it'll allow you to make a more kind of constrained world. Sometimes when you try to make the other stuff first, there's not really any kind of restrictions or constraints, and you can kind of dig yourself into a bit of a hole by creating this big stuff because you weren't restricted, and then you have to start kind of cutting things back. Whereas if you have the tools first, then you use those to kind of fuel a bit of the creativity and creating the other kind of ambient stuff.
And that's why we're doing all this live and on video and putting it all on YouTube and making all the files available to everyone if they should so choose to, like, hey, I actually really like that system. I want to make a game with it. This will all be available.
Yeah, for sure. This is open source game design.
Yep. So we could even call this Crud Senses? Yeah.
Yeah.
This CRUD approach is working really well, actually. I like this. It's making it very clear and easy to organize everything.
So we've got 5.
What about time?
Good night, people.
Night-night, meatball. Sleep well.
So what would that look like? What would you do being able to read time?
Have a perfect sense of what time it is at all times.
I think it depends on what time is, I guess. That gets a bit complicated pretty fast. And dependent on settings and stuff like that.
So, like, to me, time doesn't really become useful until you get rank 4.
Not super useful, no. But then it's stupid useful.
Like, if you want things like... Because, like, there's a lot of weird overlap with the kind of stuff with time, because it doesn't actually really exist. It's a perception thing.
With the overlaps between all of these things, how that plays out is you need to have both of them to the level of doing that in order to create that effect. That's how magics play together.
Yeah, like what we're doing in regards to time. Because, like, time's like, what I mean by a weird thing about time is it's not really like a physical thing. It's not really a physic thing. It's a perception thing, right? We kind of experience it, but at the same time, like, when we go to manipulate time, it's mostly just, manipulating perception, unless we want to manipulate world state at given times, which then we start kind of getting really, really complicated really quick. So I think it depends on what we want to do with it. But I'd be kind of messing with time just worries me a little bit as someone who likes time travel in movies, because there's no clean way without leaving holes.
Yeah. Hey, Rubido. Think of it this way, okay? And just a quick example for, like, say, World of Darkness system. If you wanted to be able to accelerate time on just an object in order to age it, you would need to have the ability to create time, probably, to speed it up for that object. Is how I'd kind of interpret the rule translation. I know it's not a sensible way to actually look at it, but just in the magical and the hierarchy. And then you would also need to have the ability to update matter.
Yeah, I think the issue kind of that we fall into is, like, when we start talking about physics stuff, is that all you would really need to do is update matter, because that's what the time is just doing, is changing matter over time. The aging process is just chemical. Yeah, so we kind of get a bit tricky. So it'd have to be limited to things of, like, perception. Like, you can change someone's time perception so they move quicker or they move slower, or you can do things like, have a sense of the past in this location. There's markers or whatever, something that's past. You can kind of like when energy moves and stuff like that, like, you can sense what went on here a year ago, 10 years ago, or whatever, and kind of get a sense of that through some sort of kind of perception check and onto that. But when we start getting to that stuff, it gets a bit complicated.
Okay. The way that I would see the time magic would be being able to either slow down others' perceptions of things, like make it as though time is moving slower for them, or faster for them, or do the opposite for yourself, like combining it with some sort of physical buff while also slowing down your perception of time, so that you can react fast enough to a bullet being shot at you to smack it out of the air with your weapon or something, because that would be badass. But that could also just be done through sensory magic.
Yep. So I've just put time down as question marks, and we'll just move on from it. And if we end up having a whole bunch and we don't really need it and everything else kind of works, then we can just delete it. Otherwise, it's there to remind us.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think it might be something that people end up figuring out how to use just from the tools that are there that we've already specified, like thoughts and senses and stuff like that, right? Like,
yeah,
with thoughts, you can maybe manipulate memory, make them think that we're still standing 10 feet away when we've actually, like, run up to them now and are in their face, and then all of a sudden they don't have a reaction time to that, right? Get that kind of initiative and stuff like that.
Free sneak attacks.
Audio hack era. Visual hacking people's eyes, like the loop back of a camera, so it's just 10 seconds of what they've seen of no movement playing over and over as they stand there and look around, and we all just run right by all sneaky.
Again, that would be perception in time, so sensory in time. I can see some creative applications of time. I'm coming around. Let's leave the question marks on.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm coming around to time.
Yeah, I don't know if it, my main thing is I don't know if it needs to be a separate thing, but it's just something that we can integrate into everything that kind of exists, right?
What about entropy?
Chaos?
Yeah. The manipulation of chance.
I guess it depends on, what...
As long as you can't break fourth wall with it.
As I'm saying, it depends on how we define kind of chance, right? Because it's like, entropy is one of those wild things where it's another one of those things that doesn't actually exist. It's a construct just from human understanding. Things we don't know is chaos, right? But as far as the universe is concerned, there is no unknowns. Everything is, abided by some rule. So it's more of just like a lack of information.
I do like the idea of being able to pull some bullshit, though, like being able to create entropy at huge cost to the player somehow. Like, there will have to be some sort of payback for this. But just creating entropy to the point where the wind suddenly shifts when they're about to be, thrown off an edge or something and pushes them back on, or just some sort of creative bullshit like that. Or, deleting entropy to make sure their projectile hits its target.
I created enough entropy to cause a taxi's tire to explode while it was driving past something we wanted to kill. It worked well.
I like the idea. I think most of the results of entropy could be achieved with other magics. I would like to put some question marks on that one.
Yeah, we could do something neat in regards to entropy or fate that has direct relation to the GM, because that's kind of where they're kind of the master of entropy and fate in that regard. So it could be kind of some stuff like that where maybe the user isn't fully aware of it, but that's when we start getting to that fourth wall breaking where it's reducing.
We could end up looking at entropy as a cost. I'm just going to put a cost question mark as one of the balancing forces to our magic system here. Then it's the GM's tool to play with and not the players, and it gives the GM something fun when he has magic players around. That's something I've never actually seen someone do. Try to make the system fun for the GM too.
I feel like that's what 5th edition is.
Okay.
Even 5th edition, it's like the GM's always had an interesting role because they.
Oh, I know. I've been a GM many times.
Yeah,
many years.
Mostly explaining for chat.
Okay.
But the GM, plays an entirely different game. They're managing basically everyone else's fun. And for the most part, it takes a special person who kind of enjoys that to have fun. It's not really, something everyone can do, and that's why most groups kind of struggle to find a GM. It's like the same thing in, MMO games or other games where you're trying to find like a tank or a healer. A lot of people just like doing the damage stuff because there's not as much that has to go into it, right? Not as much responsibility and all that stuff. If you're playing D&D and your rogue kind of messes up a bit, it's not a big deal. But if your GM messes up, it affects everybody. So it's quite a bit. Thinking about, I don't know if there's any too much systems that really kind of allow them. They usually find ways to make the fun themselves. Is kind of how the role is.
Yeah.
But there's not always too many systems in there that are kind of built in. They're kind of just open-ended for house roles to go in. But yeah, that's kind of how that system or that role has kind of always been filled.
So one that we haven't touched on yet is force. The ability to manipulate forces.
I'm all for a crud force. Force was my favorite magic, always. Always was. I loved playing with force magic. I mean, entropy and all these other things were so creative and different, and force seemed so, just straightforward, generic, and most people would use it that way, but there's so many creative things you can do with forces.
Especially if you start thinking about friction.
And yes, keep in mind, air does have friction.
It's the thing that stops you from being able to accelerate infinitely.
Or at all. One, two, three, four, five, six, and then two with question marks. We're definitely going to need more if you want to get rid of those question marks.
Yeah, I'm thinking. So if somebody wanted to be a pyromancer, how would we represent that? Would that be energy and force?
I'd say even just energy.
It would be energy and maybe matter, depending, because fire is burning matter.
No, fire's a chemical reaction.
Yeah, the chemicals matter.
Kind of.
Yeah. Energy would be more like lightning bolt and stuff like that, where it's just like pure raw, unintended kind of just.
But
power.
you could just increase the heat energy. I guess you'd need to update matter still to change the heat energy within the matter.
Yeah, usually because fire for us is just burning oxygen for the most part, right? It's usually something in a very hot state.
You'd need to get to update energy in order to put more heat energy into something, and then you'd have to go for update matter and or update life in whatever order you want to in order to light those things on fire directly.
I guess we should maybe. What do we mean by life? I guess we should figure out.
Organic living matter.
Okay.
Not the matter itself, though, just the life force of it. That thing that we can't quantify in our sciences right now that we call life.
Yeah, so it's like it's that weird mix between matter and energy.
It's the reaction of the two that happens, sort of. So the ability to, heal a wound, accelerate the healing process, encourage natural processes and stuff within that force that we call life.
Or if you get to delete, just immediately necrotize all of a person's flesh.
Yep.
There would also be fantastic blowback from doing that.
That's why you just cheat and you get as far as create, and you create necrotizing fleshitis.
I mean, it'd take longer.
A little bit.
Talking a matter of months rather than instant, but
still get the job done.
Necrotizing fasciitis is nothing to sneeze at.
Force, thought, the senses. Well, are all the senses lumped into one?
Yes. Like think illusion mage for that one.
Yeah.
What about where would we want like magnetism to fall under?
I think that would be under forces.
Energy, probably. Well, I guess magnetism is a force, yeah. What is energy then?
Force.
Force.
Yeah, we're running into this problem with physics now, where it's like.
Well, yeah, we just have to decide where our lines are and how we want to draw them.
Yeah.
Then we put examples under each one to give people an idea of what they really mean, what they are. Examples are the best way to do it.
Yeah. I think there's quite a bit there. I think there's I guess it depends on how much overlap we want between. If we want people to be taking multiple schools combined that allow certain things, or
That's
if we
the
want
goal.
people to focus. Okay, then I think there's a fair bit there for now. And I think when we start getting into the questions we're asking, what do we want people to be able to do, and we actually start making the tools, then we'll probably start finding either gaps or walls that we need to fill.
Yeah,
break down.
For the truly, truly powerful, you're going to be planning on getting 2 or 3 of these up pretty high. And that's going to be the same as a physical person maxing out 3 physical stats and getting probably 2 or 3 skills under each of them to max. They're going to be probably similar point investments. So there's a lot of power there for the magic.
They
but
would be
the physical person
they would be the same point investment.
Yeah.
But the physical person obviously would be a beast in melee combat, but the magic user would have significant control over the world around them.
Yes, the magic person will be stronger by that point, but the physical person will have had to carry them there. Which is the same kind of progression you see in most pen and papers with magic and physical. Are we all okay with that progression?
I think there's probably some changes we can make to it, just so we don't have to force people into the kind of having to pick certain roles just to match a. I know the Holy Trinity is fantastic, but I also don't know if it always needs to be a thing in regards to tanks always having to be big and strong. I feel like there is, if someone's strong enough with magic, I feel like they should be able to manipulate all that stuff to kind of fill some of those gaps too.
I bet you a sense mage would make a just fine tank, or a really good matter life mage.
Yeah, I think
Force
or
tank
even
mage.
force.
Force tank could totally be a mage. Yeah.
yeah, like there's like certain progressions you can do as well as like a bit. Maybe they start off a bit more utility, and then get a bit stronger, which is kind of what you see a lot with, the physical roles as well. They don't always start off, the strongest. They start off with a bit more utility. They're usually doing, dodges, or they're doing
Cantrips.
Cantrips, like rendering, and like they do stuff that gives them an edge, but it's not just an overpower. So it could be utility like that, for themselves, and utility for a party, and then they build up, and as they get more and more, or as they get stronger, then it becomes a bit more direct and offensive.
For sure. Which is what I'm thinking with the read level of these abilities. Like your level 1, your 1 rank in the magic
I think
would be the ability to...
I think we can make read 2 and do like a sense as level 1. And we can define a difference between them. I can. But go on.
Sense would be like being able to read the presence of, and read would be being able to read the intensity of.
Yeah, the properties of. Yeah. First, is it there, and then what are the properties of it?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
They're all OP as fuck if you get creative.
All of them. All of them are. Like, I can think of ways to break any of these. It's just that we're putting the burden on the DM to be able to put some sort of consequence for breaking the world into the game.
We'll come up with some guidelines and ideas afterwards on what we think is a proper balance for it, I'm sure. Like, I want to work out some system where we can give the GM the tool to, like, have his own pool of entropy building whenever they cast spells that he can use as backlash at certain times, or maybe at certain failures and stuff he can pull on it to create bigger effects. I want something for him.
This is just a random idea that maybe we'll write down somewhere, but as a system for that, like we said, for entropy, depending on how we want to do, like religion, gods, or anything like that, or even just the DM's role, you could kind of make that be a like an in fate's favor thing that all magically intuned people can sense, and then that can kind of allow the GM to kind of pull the ceiling off for certain moments only. So like they can't walk to a town and completely level the town, because they sense that right now they're not fully attuned, or they're not in fate's favor. So if they attempt it, there'd be so much entropy that it'll just kind of either fizzle or backfire or whatever. But let's say there's like a really big bad, really big boss in front of them, and it's a huge fight, and they can sense that they're in fate's favor, so they can do this super crazy shit that they usually can't do, to kind of allow for really cool moments, but still kind of have it be restrained, so they're not just 100% broken all the time. And then it's at the GM's discretion when to kind of flip that switch and just allow them to go like full sicko mode.
Would you like me to share how World of Darkness handled it?
Sure.
Yeah. So what they do is that they explain that there is a natural order to things, right? Like we have these natural laws of physics and everything, and it's how the world works normally, and that's how the world wants to work. That's how the world should work. So when you come and you alter it, if there's anything around to perceive that altering that doesn't understand magic, doesn't know of its existence, doesn't understand that world, it creates paradox, and they track paradox, and you'll build paradox point for every point of magic you use around people that shouldn't see it. And those points are then the GMs to get to sort of spend back at you. And like at a rest or something, or at an unexpected time, he could just use that to sort of use your own magic and create effects that hinder the party.
So it's a very interesting approach, and I really like it for a system that is all mages. I think it's wonderful. Because we're not all mages, you can just fucking delete people and pay the cost later that way. The way that I would like to do it is that you have to pay the cost in order to get the spell to go off. Like, you say you wanted to just Thanos somebody, you would have to give up part of your life. You would have to give up a limb. You would have to give up, 10 years of your lifespan. You would have to give up, all but one of your hit points, sort of thing.
That's What if you pay the cost to get the ability rather than to cast the ability? And then it's kind of more like the BioWare cyberware systems of Shadowrun.
Elaborate.
So
'Cause I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So in Shadowrun, let's say you've got a 10 body score, right? And you want to put in this piece of BioWare that costs 3 body. Your body score wouldn't actually go down, but your like actual body would be tracked with a lower value at that point. So you've got 7 body left to put BioWare or cyberware in. 3 of the body is consumed with that one piece. It really limits how much you can have. You need a bigger pool of body over and over again in order to put more pieces in. And you get the same thing with cyberware affecting one of your mental stats, which is also your magic stat. So the more cyberware you have, the less magically active you are, if you remember that one.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, they work on the same pool, which was actually a really nice balancing thing.
So, what about both?
I like both. Propose.
So what I'm thinking is you could pay the cost up front to make sure that you don't have to pay it later. But for somebody who ends up in a situation where they need to pull some bullshit or they're gonna die, they can give up a limb to just kill something, or they can give up their magic attunement in order to completely wipe out the effects of a massive spell that they're staring down the barrel of.
Well, the concern is
But if they can already do that, then they can already do that. Like, if they've already paid the price to have that level of magic, then they've already paid the price to have that level of magic, and they can do that. If they haven't paid the price to have that level of magic, then they just don't have that kind of magic, and they're kind of fucked.
Right, but I want to break your limits system. Like, I want the heroic moment where you give
But I don't think
something very significant.
I'm cool
in
with
order
having
to do
a
something
system
that you normally wouldn't be able to do.
I'm cool with having a system like that, but I don't like it being tied to just the mages. If there's a system like that, every character should be able to do it.
So I was saying, if it's in the GM's control, because they can kind of, they'll be aware of the situation they're in. They can, as I was saying, kind of in that fate or blessing kind of system, and that can go between, not just mages, but physical characters as well. Right? You're pushed to the brink. Well, all of a sudden, you're in fate's favor, and you push beyond your limits for a little bit to get through whatever you're kind of encountering, which kind of is a nice tool to have for GMs, especially people who don't want to wipe parties, depending on what the structure is, right? Because it's hard to know, especially as a beginner GM, what your party will be able to handle, and you throw one extra orc at them, and next thing you know, you've killed everybody, and now the game's over, and you have to, start over, kind of idea. So
Shadowrun has a solution to this. I'll just tell you what it is to sort of get some juices flowing. That's its karma pool system, where every 3 to 5 levels, you don't get a karma point for spending. You get an extra die in your karma pool, and you can use those dice at any time during the day to increase certain rolls. And then if you're going to die, you can sacrifice your whole karma pool in order to change fate and save your character's life once.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking, take that system, but allow it to not just be a full defensive thing, but also allow it to, be a bit more offensive. So it's, you have knowledge of these things, you have the ability to do them, but you can't just do them at whim all the time. But they're not an exorbitant cost. They are costly.
Okay.
So they're kind of like rare, but not, once in a campaign kind of things.
I think we can work out something here that will give Rage what he wants without breaking it entirely, while we also figure out what's the cost of casting a spell. How do we cast a spell? What do we use?
So for like the sense read portion of magic,
Hold
I
on.
don't really
Sorry, real quick. 5 levels of magic. Sense. Read. Update. Create. Destroy. Beautiful. That works really well. We don't even have to discuss it. Go on.
So for 1 and 2, the way I'm thinking is there shouldn't be a cost. You can just do those things innately.
There might be a
But-
cost if you're new to this magic. It might be more trying for you at the beginning.
What would that cost be?
So I'm all for spells not having a cost, or you being good enough to not have a cost sometimes / after a while. But if you're new to it, then you might not always be great at it. Since we already have this wonderful system of chance and progress all at the same time, what if there is just a cost to cast the spell that you have to reach in your dice? So it might even take you a few turns to get the effect off if you're not good. That could also affect time here.
We would use a skill check style thing where there's a amount of work that needs to be done that you need to roll against a certain value.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
okay, so do it like a skill check. Skill check.
And then to address your old, well, what about an emergency situation where you're like, I just need to do this? We can allow them to spend hit points to do work.
I don't think the cost is high enough.
Well, it depends where hit points
is
go.
Insanely,
I want to keep
is
hit points
insanely
low.
Powerful.
I do want to keep hit points low, and I don't like the idea of massive inflating hit pools. So hit points are pretty valuable.
It could be the sacrifice of a dice for a bit, some sort of reduction there. You use you borrow from the future kind of idea, right? Like you use more dice now, but you get less later.
What if it reduces the stat until they sleep? The stat associated with that magic.
Kind of like that.
So if you spend 3 points and you only had 3 points, you're at 1. 1 is the lowest you can go. You can't spend any at 1. The spell happened, but you're fucking mind numb until you rest.
Exhaustion, I guess, like mental exhaustion.
You've burnt out those magic circuits.
Yeah.
I can say for sure if I was running a game in this system, I would want to be able to like give the player the opportunity to like permanently cripple their character in some way in order to do some shit that they would never be able to do otherwise.
I like the idea of it because it happens in all the great stories. Like Final Fantasy IV, the casting of Medio.
Yeah.
He literally kills himself and dies casting it. Like it's an epic moment in the story. It's so huge.
I think the problem with that is just there becomes a dynamic between the GM and the player on the outcome of certain things. Then, like if the cost is going to be crippling, kind of like how obvious is that going to be? But then also like what the GM's kind of going on, like how much is that going to affect things? If they're mid campaign and the person gets crippled to get through something, they're almost as good as dead. Should they have just died? Kind of idea.
Well, the player probably shouldn't have done that then.
It depends on like what sort of crippling the GM goes for, right? Like if they say you lose an arm, but you're primarily focused in magic, you don't really need that arm all that much.
Yeah, I think the only problem with that then is kind of like the players, and they're always at the whim with the DM, but like it can create situations where they don't really want that to be the cost. And depending on how unclear it is, depending on context, and the GM decides, then you can get some things where the GM takes a leg when they probably shouldn't have taken a leg, and then now this person doesn't want to really actually, play with this character that now has certain.
Yeah. If there's a crippling of the character as a cost, I think the proposal of the payment should be from the player, not the GM just taking it.
The proposal of the payment is from the player, but the GM has final say.
Yeah, the GM doesn't have to accept it. He can say that's not enough.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think as long as there can be some sort of agreement, then it's fine, because that's make sure there's not a situation where the GM can step too far, or the player doesn't really know what they're getting into, and now, like I said, they'll put themselves in a situation that's worse than death. Because at least you can make a new character, but if you have a character that's now
so
it had a cool moment, but if you can't recover from it, then I can see it. I guess they could always retire them and start new. I guess it just depends on how that's going to resolve.
They could consider the character dead. I do like working it out in simple mechanical ways, though. So are you thinking like spending magic in such a way that you do something above even your level of magic as possible? Like you can only update and you just pull this out of nowhere and destroy something but permanently damage your body?
Permanently damage your body, or like permanently burn out those magic circuits so you can never use that school of magic again?
So what I was thinking is you take a stat stun point, essentially. Like I was saying, lower it by 1 until you sleep. If you need extra MP, or need to do the work instantly to get the work spent, and you lower it by 1 permanently if you need to bump your level of spell up 1.
That can be definitely in the examples. I like those mechanics. I would like to add a corollary where if you're going up 1 level, it's probably not going to permanently disable that stat. If you're going up more than 1 level, it's probably going to permanently disable that stat if you're paying with mental attributes.
Well, you can't go up 1 without paying with mental attributes.
What about paying with a body part? Or your life?
Okay. We'll talk about different mechanics when we get to there more. Let's work on finishing cost, I guess. I guess that is it. Just work like something like...
Because it is how we're doing skills as well, right? Like if you're trying to get work done.
Approximately 3 times level. It's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
With the other one, we did 4 points per level. I think 3 to 4 points per level.
Okay.
As the suggestion.
The cost is it takes 2 turns? No, the cost is an amount of work done because every die roll determines work done. If you do no work, you failed. So that's how it's success or fail, as well as a magnitude of work done. Progress and chance to succeed.
Yeah. So, like, if there's a task that you wanted to do, say you wanted to read the details of some energy that's a little ways away. At level 2, you would have to beat, 7 or 8, which is a pretty average roll for 2 dice. Like those are 7 is the most common number, 8 not that far above it. And so you'd roll your 2 die. You can probably beat a 7. You get it done.
It's an opposed roll though. You're rolling against the spell itself as well.
That's not how we were doing other skill checks.
Yeah, it was. Based on the difficulty of the skill check. The higher the difficulty, the more the skill pool. Everything was an opposed roll. To keep it simple.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're totally correct. So you'd have to do work above the difficulty of the opposed roll rather than the 3 to 4 times level, which we should probably make that an opposed roll as well then.
Yes. Yeah, I'm assuming everything is an opposed roll. Everything in the game is an opposed roll, always. If you don't have somebody to roll against, you're rolling against the difficulty of what you're trying to do. So if it's a difficulty of 2, then you're rolling against 2 dice. Think of it as kind of like a whole bunch of risk battles. You get 3 dice, they get 2 dice, and then whatever value of the 2 is higher than theirs is what applies to the work done. You might get the 6 to 8 points or whatever it is that it ends up being in that one roll. It might end up taking 2 turns. It might take 3 or 4 turns. You might go, fuck it, I need this to happen now, and just spend it. So, pool for just do it now. What do we want it to cost? HP, stats done... something else.
And so to finish the example, you would roll your dice against the opposing dice on this check, and when you completed 3 points of work, which could take 1 turn, could take 2 turns, could take 3 turns, then you would complete that task. But if you're level 4, reading magic or reading energy is probably second nature to you by that point. So you're going to get to roll 4 dice, keep the top 2, and then add your stat bonus to that. So you're probably going to get it done in 1 turn.
Yeah. Whereas you're just rolling against the difficulty die. So it gets to roll 1 die. No, 2. If you're keeping 3?
If you're reading it, they would roll 2 die.
Yeah, if you're reading, they'd roll 2 dice. So they're probably going to be an average of around 7, and then everything you have added up, if it's 6 to 8 more, you complete it instantly. And you get all those extra dice to have slots for.
Night night, Ancaria.
Sleep well.
Have a good night.
The more I think about it, the more we talk about it, the more I think it's going to play pretty well. I hope it does. Are you rolling?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm just doing some organization.
Gotcha.
ADD brain.
Yeah, no, it's cool. That's cool.
My
I ain't
assignment
complaining.
has Arduino components and electric components all over my desk. I'm like, I should put these in their bags and put them away before
Or they get lost.
Before it just never happens. And then I'm like, where do they all go? I had a fun lab where I showed up and didn't have my wires, and I'm like, oh, I need those.
What do you think for the Just Do It Now pool to sort of spend to replace the work that you didn't complete for that turn?
And I like it, but my only concern then with Magic, I guess, is balancing things that could be done. I guess it'll balance itself out with their level, but I just want to make sure that they're like a magician's role isn't just like, did I get to do my thing this turn, or am I sitting here? Did I get to do my thing this turn, or am I sitting here? Kind of, interaction. Like if depending on how well we can control, when they'll be able to do it. I find that with the amount of kind of, randomness we have, there might be some really bad edge cases where it could be something super simple, but it just wasn't in the rolls, and all of a sudden, they just for the whole encounter sat there just trying to do something, and then it didn't happen. So as long as there's some things that we can maybe have some guarantee in, and then have maybe like stronger kind of out of their reach things be something they have to kind of like try and work for, and there's a bit of that risk reward of like, you can get it, or maybe you don't get it this time.
Keep in mind that the stat associated with the Sphere of Magic will give a flat bonus to these rolls.
Yeah.
So it's not just 2d6, it's 2d6 plus 2.
Yeah, but there's still like there'll still always be those kind of edge cases. I think the only way to really address those, and that's something that'll probably be something that comes up in playtesting, I'm not too worried about right now, but if needed, we can have something where subsequent tries have reduced dice values that you need to meet, so that it gets, you're making progress one way or another. It's not just a, is it going to happen? At least that work goes towards something. So like a subsequent cast, is going to be easier than the first one, so you don't hit that edge case where you just roll bad for like 3 or 4 times in a row, and you're just sitting there like, I'm trying to read them, but I'm just bad today, kind of idea. If it takes slightly longer, then it's understandable, but those are the kind of things I'm just worried about.
That could be an issue with every single dice roll we have, and it's an interesting solution. We could look at the pluses being a direct off of work rather than a plus to the dice roll.
That would break the uniformity versus like character versus character roles. Because character versus character roles, you want to be able to include pluses from both sides.
That's fair. That's fair. And
It
when
is something to keep in mind, I think. I think it could be an interesting way of dealing with it.
well, though like you just pointed out, you want both of their pluses to get to compete against each other. If you have an extra die, you might have an extra die, or it might be the same dice, depending on the situation. You'll never be under in dice when you're trying to complete a task. And if you're completing against a basic task, there's probably not many, if any, pluses to their dice. For like circumstances and whatnot, so you're probably guaranteed to get some progress, unless you're rolling ones over and over and over again.
Which does happen.
It might.
And it sucks.
It might. It's not likely, but get good. Don't roll ones. Buy better dice.
I think I think we'll need to play test that.
Yeah.
And I like Pseudo's idea of reducing resistance as you make progress.
Yeah. If it becomes an issue, I will definitely try to work out a simple way to do it without having to keep track of how many times you've made every die roll too tightly.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's for things that will only be like 1 or 2 tries.
Yeah.
So nothing too crazy, or the ability to keep a dice roll from your previous attempt even could be something that you do. So you just roll one less dice. The dice is already there, assuming you have personal dice. Kind of idea.
Well, I mean, if you're rolling one less die, you'll always have one less die to leave there in demonstration. Because you just pick up one less, right? Yeah. That works. Guaranteed 6
So
next round, basically.
You'd be able to keep your 6 or 5.
Yeah. And then the just do it now HPE or stats done. When we get to creation, let's try to slot these into stats. That seems like the next thing to do.
So we've got 6 that we definitely want to have.
Yeah.
Looking at what we've got for our different spheres of magic, I'm leaning towards keeping them under mental.
Strength, precision, fortitude.
Somehow knowledge and appeal got swapped.
Weird. Okay, here we go. So this is our line for physical mental. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So we have 6 that we really want to have. We have time and entropy that we're sort of on the fence about.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of entropy becoming cost somehow, maybe, as a balancing point. I started on that idea a little bit, and now it's pretty sunk in. I really like it, giving the GM a toy to have fun with and make rolls with, and do fun stuff with.
So let's leave that for now. We can come back to that idea. We want to try and figure out how we're going to actually like integrate these stats to these abilities.
Mhm.
So what I'm thinking is, are there ones here that we can trim off to make it 4 schools of magic, one for each stat? Because we're kind of struggling adding more to this list. So can we trim it to make it fit?
Down to 4? No. Down to 5? Maybe. If we consider all forces a form of energy.
And thoughts and senses could be combined as well.
I do really like them being different, though.
Me too. I'm just saying that it is something that we could do if we wanted to get it down to 4.
Though we could consider thoughts and senses very similar and put them both under influence. So only one stat is needed, but you get both of them. Force and energy merge into one and become knowledge. Life is wisdom, and then matter ends up under resolve.
I like life under resolve.
I don't mind that idea. And matter under wisdom, then?
Yeah. Matter and wisdom doesn't make a ton of sense, but I do like life under resolve.
Let's just put these both under knowledge for now. So I do kind of like force and energy being different still. Examples are really easy to give for why they're different.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to be different as well. It's just in order to make this work well, or at least look on paper like it's going to work well, I don't think certain. Try one more time. If it doesn't work, I'm going to give up. I don't think a stat should have influence over more schools of magic than another.
I can understand if we can put another one under wisdom and have only one under resolve. With resolve being a sort of universal defensive stat in general, if you go all in on resolve or if it's your only mental stat, then you can also do the phys adept side of it and increase your physical stats so you can be kind of magical resistant, and if you choose to turn it on you can use it to increase your strength, increase your precision.
If we can put one more under wisdom, resolve can be magic resistance as well. Boom, did it.
But then the magic resistance is only applicable if if magic is turned on.
Magic resistance would be first your bonus to defending against a magic attack, and then I still want like a keystone ability to be able to like completely shut yourself off from magic.
I think sense might make sense under wisdom. Kind of understanding what they all do and what they are.
Sense magic?
Yeah.
But what would it do at high levels?
I think it's, well, influence is the actual using of it, right? And I think wisdom might be the actual, unlocking the combinations of different senses and what they do and how they actually affect people.
Or is it okay to just have 2 1 1 2 even? Because like I said, we're going to be working them together. So at this point, if you're just knowledge, you can kind of use force and energy together, but you can't really affect matter, life, senses, and thoughts. So you're probably going to want to have at least 2 stats up fairly high.
And matter is extremely powerful, and so is life.
Yeah. And sense and thought are very similar and work well together. Illusion and deception, force and energy are very knowledge-based, very physics-based, very... Yeah, and then matter is just crush them with matter. And yeah, life, influence over life, like I said, healing.
So
healing is super strong, and the Physidept side, and then just most physical people, if resolve is going to be tied to, because we haven't figured out the opposed role and what these stats really do, I'm okay with having resolve be the magic resistance stat. So that would be like whatever plus is to your roll when you're making an opposed roll to somebody trying to directly influence you with magic.
And I'm still trying to shoehorn in this like extreme wall
Difficulty
from magic.
Yeah, it'll never be perfectly invincible, but we can have a skill under resolve that will be your dice pool when rolling against a magic attack. And then it's in the bare base rule set of the game. But you can still have 5 dice plus 5 base when rolling against any magic effect on you.
At the cost of being being completely unable to use magic yourself.
Well, there's no cost at this point because it's just a skill. You just have to have put 5 points into resolve and 5 points into the skill, which is a significant point investment. Especially if you're not a healing mage and you haven't spent the points to activate magic. But it also means the most powerful of powerful healing mages will have a damn good resolve and could even go into that skill and become extremely hardy, resistant, and able to heal. Kind of a paladin.
What about a perk flaw system?
Oh, 100%.
I'm trying real hard to
100%.
find a place for
100%.
trying real hard to find a place for like there's no fucking magic for this person.
I'm all for a perk flaw system. 100%. Love perk flaw systems. One of my favorite bits in character creation. And we could even work them into costs of things. You know, you can activate this once per character existence, but you gain this flaw when you do it. Or the GM could hand out flaws.
For breaking your limits. Sort of thing.
Or just for his own situations. Oh, you found yourself in this situation, get this flaw. We could even make flaws for like amputee and, you know, missing limb and all these things where you could gain those flaws through naturally playing the game. Just like Fallout 2. I think the later Fallouts might do it at times, but Fallout 1 and 2 did it a lot. Where like, this event occurs, you got this perk, or you got this flaw. One of my favorites was if you go in Fallout 2, if you go into the championship boxing bout with the championship boxer and you don't beat him in the limited number of rounds you have to beat him, he bites your ear off and your charisma goes down permanently. New Vegas is the only one I think that does that after the first 2. Wouldn't surprise me.
Good old Vegas.
Yeah, New Vegas 2 is coming.
I'm not keeping my hopes up yet. Let's see what gets brought out.
Yep.
More details, please.
Yep.
For all we know, it's going to be Fallout 76 2, but now with New Vegas for some reason.
Yeah, me too, but I'm still hopeful. I believe it's Obsidian team working on it. I'm sure it's the New Vegas team that they would get to do it. It's the only way it makes sense. It's all owned by Microsoft now.
The thing that again this stupid idea of mine.
Perk flaw system is great for it.
Of just like the perk is you're untargetable by magic. The flaw is you're untargetable by magic. And that means like you can't be healed, you can't use magic yourself, you
Cannot be
can't get
targeted or
buffed.
use magic is the better way to say it. Yeah, it's a perk and a flaw, and the perk slash flaw, or we'll call it a perk, even though it has a flaw component on it. It's still a perk, and the cost of the perk should be the same as the cost of enabling magic on the character. That's how I see it.
So what? So how do we enable magic? What does that look like?
I see it as a toggle, like spend 10 points at character creation. Or later on, spend the points and find somebody to teach you, if you want to do it trainable.
So if you wanted to have a character that was magic attuned at creation, you would lose the ability to take a bunch of skills.
Yes. It would just be like a maybe 2/3 of your bonus spending pool that you get to play with at the end. You would have a fairly base character, but you'd get magic.
I think 2/3 is too high. I'm open to the idea of having a cost like that. However, I think
it should include your first point of magic.
Yeah, it should include something, because that is a pretty extreme cost.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to apply a free point of magic when you toggle it on, because otherwise, why is it toggled on?
Yeah. Follow-up question, because I'm legitimately unsure of how I feel about this. Should the perk flaw system have a cost associated with it? Because otherwise, like, what's the point of the flaw? Like, the flaw is supposed to be the cost you're paying.
No. Perk flaw, this one I said is a perk, and that is cost. Flaws don't provide perks and give points when you take them.
I understand where you're coming from now.
Yes.
I understand. Okay. So the way that I was thinking of it was, in order to take a perk, you have to take a flaw.
If you do the point system for it, then you can take a perk by taking a flaw, as long as they're similar value.
Yeah. If we work it into our point buy system, I think that works quite well and keeps it consistent with other things.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking, like, a little more basic. Just, you trade a flaw for a perk.
Then you get into, like, how strong is the perk versus how strong is the flaw? Am I getting this amazing perk for losing my pinky toe, or shit like that?
Yeah, and that's down to GM, I think.
Yeah. But
I would have to say, no, that's bullshit.
I like taking as much out of it as I can, so for the most part, the GM can just go use the book and make your character, and not have to, like, review every little thing the character has done for worry that they've tried to break something stupid. There's still...
we could even have different point values associated with different flaws and perks.
Yeah, that's my point. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
That was my idea. Yeah, that's...
Yeah,
which is basically the Shadowrun system.
Yeah.
Like, you can have a minor phobia. It could be like a really strong phobia of something really, really rare. Like, maybe you have a crippling phobia of penguins and you live in the desert. Unless you go to a zoo, you're probably going to be fine. It's not a high value one. But, a crippling fear of spiders, that's a pretty high point value thing, because you can see a spider anywhere, anytime. GM could just be like, oh, there's a spider in the corner. Good game.
Guess what? You have disadvantage on everything now because you're busy staring at that spider. making sure it doesn't come any closer.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you have just a very slight fear of spiders where you get like a -1 to your roll when it's around instead of a disadvantage from a crippling fear. You know, there's a very different ways to interpret different values of phobia. So we'll have to come up with a fun perk flaw list now. That'll be a whole probably 2 streams.
Oh yeah, that's at least a stream.
But I'm in agreement that matter in life are strong enough that we can leave them like this.
I think that makes sense.
You'll probably want to go with 2 points. Influence is not a strong stat, but it gives you influence over, you know, all that fun stuff as well. So if you go magic way, it's pretty strong.
If you go hard in influence, I can see it being ridiculously OP.
You're a fucking Jedi if you're that strong in influence. But if you go that strong in resolve, you can still be a fucking Jedi. Because that's still Jedi with the Phys-Adept side and jack up you go as far as update life for yourself, so you don't even really need to make big rolls on it, and just update your strength and update your dexterity and stuff in situations so you can jump and flip and knock things out of the air. And, yeah.
And a little bit of thought influence in order to keep your reaction speed up with your body's ability.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's like that Shadowrun character that we wanted to build that was so fast that nobody could beat him to the punch, and he was able to deliver so much force just by hitting things that he just turns them into red mist. But his heart fucking explodes. The only way to continue playing that character is to have the best insurance so that they keep reviving him every time he does his thing.
Every time he accelerates and punches somebody, he dies from a heart attack, and the emergency services have to come and shock him back to life. What if we just installed a defibrillator into his armor and made it shock, like we can use the friction of him going through the air to charge it? So that as he accelerates, it charges it, and he punches them, and he dies, and then all of the energy from that gets released and shocks him back into life. I love it.
New take on One Punch Man.
Oh, I want to make this character now. We'll have to make it one of the personalities in our next sci-fi game that we design, because it's fucking amazing.
He's gonna end up dying more times than Bort, and Bort died a lot.
Every time he fights, he'll die and win. He'll
But have it work with like death saving throws or something, so he's not guaranteed to get out every single time.
You can balance it by having the hit deal like double or triple damage from the acceleration and the speed, but because he has to spend a round reviving himself after every punch, he only gets to do it every other round. It's like a cooldown.
1 round reviving, 1 round disoriented as fuck because he just died, and then he can act again.
Unless his resolve is high enough. And he's just like,
dude, we can
I'm
totally
revived,
make that
I'm
work
good,
in
let's
this
go,
system.
let's go.
We could totally make that work in our system. It'd be ridiculous.
We haven't decided if this is going to be cyberpunk or this or that, but honestly, I think we should make it steampunk.
I think we should just have add-on books for all the different shit.
Yeah,
Like,
but I
is
think
our
this
base
one that
system.
we're working on to test with, let's do it steampunk, because nobody does fucking steampunk.
That's because there's not crazy bullshit that you... Well, I guess there is crazy bullshit
There's
that you can
absolutely
do.
crazy bullshit you can do. There's some wild Japanese steampunk movies. The only thing I hate about this new job is I miss some of my favorite streams now. But work is good. Is work good? Because working is good. Is work good?
As long as the work is good.
If I remember correctly, he is back working with animals, which should be good, mostly.
That sounds like a good time. Unless it's sick animals all the time, then it's a very sad time.
It can be heartbreaking, I'm sure, at times. As heartbreaking as realizing I haven't ordered dinner and it's 6 p.m.
Every weekend.
Only when we're doing the pen and paper game creation. It's almost like we really like making games and just end up going late every time and not focusing on anything else.
Yep.
I do like making games. So we didn't touch character creation at all, really, but we did hash out a pretty cool magic system that I'm pretty stoked for. And I think there's going to be fistfights over who gets to be the mage in the playtest.
Oh, you guys can have them. I want to be the anti-mage. I have an idea for a character already.
You love the new clinic. It's perfect for you. Smaller in scale, but just busy enough you're never bored. Yep. Yep. Crud.
Well, it turned into Scrud.
Yeah, it's now... or not. It's actually... Struct. Struct! But yeah, CRUD is create, read, update, destroy. It's programmer speak. It's the standard operations for data. So like when you're creating the framework for your data management, you do your CRUD
Sounds
operations.
like an orc chieftain name.
It does. My first World of Warcraft orc was named Grind! It was my first MMO, and I didn't know what grinding was when I made the character. I did, however, live up to the name.
Much grinding.
I was the first 60 warrior on the server. That was a grind. I leveled as prot.
Damn.
In vanilla. I ran a guild. I was in instances 24/7. Every time I got out of an instance, I had literally 15 people going, "Can you help me with this instance?" So I leveled fine.
So I wanna run my anti-mage idea by you guys and think about how it would be implemented in our system. So my idea is that the character would actually be magic attuned and would be focused primarily on resolve and whatever we put life under, wisdom, I guess, so that he would be able to buff himself and resist enemy magic. Those would be his focuses. He would also have very high physical capabilities so that he can close distances and use what is essentially a flintlock musket with just a giant fucking like 50 caliber ball in it, made of some sort of fantastic metal that makes it hard for magic users to heal themselves. And he would get one shot per, 3 rounds or something to do this. But his approach is neutralize the enemy's magic, buff himself up, get in close enough that his shot can't be dodged, and put that ball straight in the chest of the mage. Most muzzle loaders are 50 cal. It's true. I did know that. That's why I said 50 cal.
Hey, Punk, welcome. I mean, that's going to be a lot of down to the world that this system is put into, too, for like a metal that prevents healing and stuff like that.
That part, that's just like me dreaming. But if he can neutralize the enemy's magic, stop them from being able to deal with himself, or deal with him, and then close and just one shot of "this is gonna kill you if I can get into range."
I mean, I don't think that's just a mage killer. I think that's just a killer.
But
you do have all
if
the
you
magic
didn't
resistance
have-
going on, but the rest of it is going to be just as effective on anybody that's not magic 2.
Yeah, but the mages in this system, even with the way that we've set it up, if they're high level, are going to be impossible to deal with if you're not like set up to resist magic.
Yeah, if they can impact you directly and not just all the world around you, then you're fucked. 100%. You're going to need a mage on your team. But I'm okay with that because you know what? You ever tried to play D&D without a mage at high level? It's not a good time. It's not. You need a mage on your team. That's why they have mercenaries. You can hire a mage. You literally
Rent a
need
mage.
one. You literally need one at times. A blunderbuss that fires special shot with increased interrupt chance. Just a blunderbuss full of forks. It's good enough.
Or spoons for extra confusion.
Who fires a bloody spoon?
You get my references.
The blunderbuss in Bloodborne is such poop. It is.
It is. It was very sad. Because my
Although,
first run was the box art run, so I went and saw Cleaver and Blunderbuss, and I was just like, man, parrying in this game is hard.
The blunderbuss is superior at times, though. Due to the way the animations move, it is far more effective on BSB.
Yeah. But that's like the only like clear winner for the Blunderbuss.
Pretty much. But when you start having a problem on BSB Chalice, just go get yourself a blunderbuss. Because you will have problems on BSB Chalice. Fuck that fight. Fuck Bloodstarved Beast.
Does this character, do you think it fits with our system? Do you think it's something that will work?
Yes.
I can't see any reasons why it wouldn't work.
And part of it is going to be down to the initiative system, and beating mages on initiative is going to be real important, and initiative is going to be primarily physical stats, so you will often beat them on initiative.
Yeah, especially because he's not like hand-to-hand combat. He can do hand-to-hand combat, but his focus is on his firearm, so that's going to be mostly precision leveling.
Yeah, so if you get to act first and you know what everyone else is doing before you get to act, you're going to be at an advantage. Don't worry. There's lots of advantage to go around. We haven't gotten to any of the physical stuff yet. See,
No. We spent this entire stream on magic.
yes, and honestly, knocking out this much of a magic system that we can all agree on within 2 hours is pretty fucking good in my opinion.
Yeah. Good progress.
Yeah. So we will talk character creation tomorrow, and then we'll go to skills, and then we'll go into the physical combat with the skills.
Oh, Val.
The defibrillator?
Now that you've said the defibrillator, I can't think of a better name for the one-punch die guy.
That's because there isn't a better name for him. Yep. It's like a functional version of the Crank experiment. And that movie was fucking hilarious if you haven't seen it. I strongly suggest watching that one. I'm guessing you've both seen it?
I think so.
Really?
I think I have.
Think so?
I don't know. If you're talking about Crank with Jason Statham, then yes. But if
Yes.
it's Crank Experiment, then
No.
yeah.
That's the one.
Just Crank?
Yes,
Yeah.
then I have definitely seen Crank.
Because the character that Statham was in Crank was an experiment kind of gone wrong-ish. Why he had to do
Or
it.
right.
It wasn't, I mean, it was kind of functional, but not super functional, so it just kind of was what it was. This one is actually like, he doesn't have to sustain himself, which is wonderful.
I mean, we could take influence from Crank with that character as well and make it so that, like, when he's not all hopped up on adrenaline, then he's just like, "Bleh."
He has to keep that defib charged somehow.
I'm looking at pizzas now, and I've got to go and figure out what I want to do. So, what are we doing later? Are you guys busy, or are we just going to shoot zombies?
I'm down for whatever.
I'm down for some Back for Blood.
Okay. Well, I was also including Insurgency as shooting zombies, kind of, technically. Sort
Shooting
of.
things. We'll shoot.
They're supposed to
We'll
be
shoot the shit.
zombies. Yeah.
There will be shooting
Okay.
of some form or another.
We'll be back with more shooting after we commence with the fooding. That sounds like a plan. Thank you for joining for all the magic design talk. Pretty good progress. Character creation ideas. Next 2 weeks away? 2 weeks away. Next week, I think we'll have 2 games to review. Because we only got through 1 game the last time we did reviews, and I'll have Darkwood done finally.
Darkwood, good game.
I'm not that far away. I just have to find that damn cottage that I went through the whole area of where it was highlighted and didn't see any cottage anywhere. So, we're gonna go eat, and we'll be back. And until then, I'm Deus.
I'm Rage.
And I'm Pseudo.
And may all your shots be headshots.